Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. All right, folks, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 22, and the title of today's episode is Fortify Your Inner Citadel. I'll start you out with a quote from Marcus Aurelius. Your mind will be like its habitual thoughts, for the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Folks, I'm going to jump right into this one today. This is going to be a quick one. Every celebrity guru out there is going to sell you some version of the same mantra. It's going to go something like this. With my patented proprietary method, you can change your thoughts and thereby change your life. But listen, folks, long before TikTok influencers, long before Instagram influencers, long before online coaches, long before TED Talks were en vogue, the Stoics had developed their own concept for changing their thoughts and thus improving their lives. And they called this concept the inner citadel. Now, the inner citadel is like a fortress, right? It describes that sanctuary, that inner sanctuary or fortress of the mind that remains impervious and represents a state of tranquility and resilience. See, the Stoics developed and maintained this inner citadel, and it was an imperfect process, right? It's a constant thing. You're constantly building and rebuilding it and working on it. But they developed this inner citadel by developing self-awareness, practicing self-discipline, aligning with their judgments, aligning with reason, aligning with the cardinal virtues. That is how they developed this inner citadel. You see, they believe that training the mind, they could detach themselves from their desires, from their passions, from their attachments, these things that often lead to our suffering and unrest because they are outside of our control. In modern terms, think of it like this. Your brain is like a computer. It's going to operate as programmed. So the only way that we can program the code for our mind that allows us to fortify that inner citadel is to mentally rehearse positive thoughts, to mentally rehearse our virtues. It's to remind ourselves of what we control and what we do not. A great time to do that is first thing in the morning. Now, I'm not talking about like getting up and doing the Stuart Smalley thing where you sit in front of the mirror and you say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. And for some of you who are younger than me, that may be a very deep cut, but look it up. You'll see what I mean. The point is not to do something like that, not these positive affirmations about, everybody likes me and I'm okay and I'm just fine. No, the thing that you need to be doing is asking yourself and reminding yourself, in fact, what you stand for, what your values are, and what your purpose is. That's the sort of mantra that allows you to identify what you need to be focused on a daily basis and allows you to detach from the things that are left to fate, that are outside of your control, that you shouldn't be spending and wasting your time on. Guys, this doesn't have to be a complicated or time-consuming exercise. It can be as little as a few minutes a day. I mean, I literally just asked 3 questions right there that could be answered just like that. And if you ask yourself those questions a couple times a day, several times a day, when you start to get worried, when you start to get upset, when you start to have a troubled spirit, which we're going to get into tomorrow, when you start to see that inner citadel crumble, when you start to see your resilience break, pause and ask yourself, am I focused on things that are outside of my control? How do I detach from those things? I can ask what I stand for. I can ask what my values are. I can ask what my purpose is. And are the things I'm worried about or concerned about aligning with that? Right? Remember the quote that I started you out with, your mind will be like its habitual thoughts, for the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So what thoughts are we programming into our brain? Are we reminding ourselves what we stand for, reminding ourselves what our values are, reminding ourselves what is virtuous in our conduct and what we should be doing? Are we reminding ourselves what our purpose is? Your soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you're constantly worried about things outside of your control, if you're constantly putting yourself down, if you're constantly focused on things that you have no control over or cannot do anything about, that is what dyes the color of your soul. That is what corrodes and dismantles that inner citadel. That is what reduces your resilience. So get out your paper or your journal, get out your pencil, write down these 3 questions that I just asked myself. I want you to ask them to yourself today. That's the exercise. Number 1, what do I stand for? Number 2, what are my values? Number 3, what is my purpose? Ask yourself that and answer it a number of times today. Anytime you start to feel yourself nervous and worried about external events that are beyond your control, that are outside of your actions, your efforts, your reactions, your attitude, I want you to focus on those things that you do control, I want you to ask yourself those affirming mantras. What do I stand for? What are my values? And what is my purpose? Folks, thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to support this podcast, there's a few ways you can do so. Number one, you can pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you get your books. You can find the link in the show notes. You can find the link on my Instagram. You can find a link on my website, ChristopherHealy.com, which is also linked in the show notes. You can pick it up on ebook. You can pick it up in paperback. I like the paperback because I want to be able to take notes. I want to be able to highlight things, but get it however you want. That's one great way to support this podcast. Number two, you can subscribe to the Stoic Responder. It is a free resource for law enforcement. It's going to deliver episodes directly to your inbox every single day, well, 4 days a week anyway. And you're also going to get my newsletter there, which is a deeper dive typically on the Stoic concept related to leadership. So if you're into leadership, if you're into personal development, if you want to know the thoughts of Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, and how you can apply them to your role as a leader in a police or first responder environment, you definitely want to sign up for that as a free resource for you. Please sign up. Number three, finally, like, share, and subscribe to this podcast so that others can find it. If you're getting value from this, please share it with others so that they can get value from it as well. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to two companies that are doing great things for the law enforcement community. Number one is the Blue Badge Coffee Company. Check them out. They've got great coffee, great products. They've got great merchandise. That's a law enforcement owned company, and a portion of every single sale goes to support peer support programs around the country for first responders just like yourself. So support good companies that are supporting people like you. And number two, the Overwatch Collective is a 501c3 organization that's providing therapeutic services to first responders, to military and their families, completely free of charge and completely anonymous. Their goal is for their mantra is one more is one less, which I absolutely love. And to me, that means one more individual who is getting their services paid for, taken care of, is one less potential suicide. And that's what we all should be striving for. So support good organizations like that. And if you have a good organization that supports law enforcement, let me know so I can give you a shout out as well. Folks, thanks so much. I'll be back with three more episodes this week. But until next time, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.